Hello, my name is Dan Gable, and I'm the professor of jazz history and big band ensembles here at Westfield State University. I'm a trombonist, published arranger, and a band leader. I lead my own professional big band, Dan Gable and the Abletones, and I've toured the world with the Glenn Miller Orchestra as well as many other groups. I also serve as president and CEO of the American Big Band Preservation Society, Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving, promoting, and performing this amazing music with a focus on education. So, I'm delighted to be here today to chat with you because I love jazz music and I'm passionate about inspiring others. So let's get started. Auditioning. So have you ever auditioned for something before? Maybe a school play, maybe your band or orchestra? Well, whether you have auditioned before or not, it can sometimes be a little nerve-wracking. It's okay because, well, we all feel that way and we've all been there. The district's festival is a great experience, but even just the process of auditioning for something in front of a judge is a valuable skill. So if you're nervous about your audition, here's your first Gable tip that I always remind my students. What's the worst that can happen? I'm serious. Will the room explode? No. Will the ocean dry up and you get a bunch of whales on the shore or something like that? No way. No. We'll all be pleased and proud of you just for trying your best. And just by auditioning for something is an accomplishment in and of itself. Always take a deep breath, or 5, and then play from your heart. Because music is a beautiful thing. Just take a look at some specifics, and I hope that all of these will help you out. First step is preparing. Now, you got to have the right music. That's step 1. So here's your first Gable tip. You have to have it printed, like this, right here on my stand. Now, iPads and other devices, they're great, and I realize you can mark them and all kinds of things like that, but having the paper in front of you where you can easily just pick up a pencil and make a notation, it really is essential. So if you haven't done that already, take a moment, do that right now. Next, download the track. It's very easy for you, it's right on the website. So after we work on the tune, you'll be ready to play along with this track, just as you will for the audition. So practice it as you will actually in the real audition. So for now, let's just talk about the song itself. So the song that they've picked for your audition this year is Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. Have you heard of that tune before? I love it. That's what we call a jazz standard, meaning that it's a major part of the jazz musician's repertoire. So it's worth listening to this tune because it's often called on gigs, on jam sessions, and you know what? It's just a great tune. In fact, I'm probably going to play it on my gig tonight. So it's worth it. Learn it. Sigmund Romberg wrote the melody, and the great Oscar Hammerstein II wrote the lyrics. You know that name? He's the same fellow who wrote all those Broadway hits, Oklahoma, The Sound of Music, so on and so forth. So why do I mention the lyricist? Well, in learning a jazz standard, it's important to learn the entire thing. The melody, the chords, and the lyrics. Well, there are lyrics. This song has great lyrics, so the lyrics help you phrase the melody. The trombone is a beautiful lyric instrument and similar to the human voice. So always remember to sing through your horn. Sing that melody through your horn. And I got a great anecdote for you, jazz anecdote. The great Lester Young, the president of the saxophone, okay? He was playing a job one day, and he was playing, he was improvising, he was playing this beautiful song, and he abruptly stopped. And his friend on the bandstand said to him, "Hey, Prez, what happened? Why'd you stop?" And Prez looked a little forlorn and hung his head a little bit, and he said, "I forgot the words. I got to go learn them." So that's it. It's a song. My next tip is to learn the song. How are we going to do that? When you audition for something, your first task is to play the head. That's what we call the melody in the business, the head. In order to really play it, my best advice for you is to learn the tune. What do I mean by that? Learning a song is not just memorizing it. To learn it is to get it inside your own head so that you're able to perform it in your own way from your heart. Here are some tips on how to do that. Step 1, sing the melody. Now I mean with your own voice. You can do that on a simple syllable like do or lu. So here's an example. Let's take this song and get the very first phrase. Okay? Now, whatever range is good for you, I want you to sing that. Lu, lu. It doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be great, but it's internalizing the melody. Ya la 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 la. So keep singing it, sing the entire thing through. That's a great way to start it getting internalized. So now I want you to learn the structure or the form of the song. That's how the music is organized. Most tunes are in 8-bar sections in the jazz idiom. So they're usually 32 measures long. For the first section, after the introduction, let us call that letter A. Note that that section repeats. So it is A followed by another A. The next section you'll hear, all right, I want you to hear how the melody changes. So the tonal center changes and it's different musical material. That's letter B, what we call the bridge. Now, then take a look. The last 8 bars are almost identical to the first section, right? So this section is another A. So like in poetry and in some prose, these letters help you organize the form. The form won't change. That's one of the rules of jazz. So when playing the song, it will always follow the AABA format. So now over to you. Can you think of another song that is AABA? One that comes to my mind is Take the A Train, or a holiday song like Let It Snow. The next time you're listening to a jazz standard or a song, any genre, see if you can identify the form. That is a key part of learning to improvise. Now, step 3 is to sing and play the melody from memory. Now that you know the form, you really have to only learn 16 measures of music. A is 8 bars repeated, and then B is 8 bars. So once you have that, you have the whole tune. Then you just put them all together. It's important that you do that from memory. So step 4, now that you've got the melody, it's time to check out something called chord changes. So just like the melody, it's important to not just memorize the chords, but really learn what those changes are to a tune. Changes, that's what we call chord changes in the business. It's short for chord changes. So you'll see that in the AABA pattern, it's the same. So the first thing I'd recommend is writing out the changes over the melody. So you see on our page here, we have the first section, it's just the melody written out, and then the chord changes are written below with these slashes. I'm going to encourage you to take your pen or pencil and write the chord changes over the melody. That's another layer of helping you understand how those two things relate to one another. So when you put it together like that, maybe you have to write them in, but the act of writing it down is actually a great way to help you learn what all of them are and really internalize it. So begin to notice some of those patterns. Look for the 2/5s. Check out when the tune returns home. Well, that's what we mean by the home key. So in this case, we're in the key of C minor. There are often moments in the melody, and eventually your improvisation, that you can be landing in those home spots. So most importantly, check out how different the bridge is now. Suddenly, we arrive at the relative major, E flat major, right? So then that's followed by C major. So these are important moments in your solo, so you know where you are and you're able to demonstrate that. You demonstrate that you have an understanding of the harmonic structure of the tune. The next step in putting all this together is to build your solo. To start, just play a variation of the melody. Don't think about the chords. Improvise the melody. Let me give you a little demonstration. We know the melody so well now, right? Now, put your own little spin on it. Something like that. So just, I really was playing the melody, right? But now you can depart further and further and further. Something like that. Now mess around with it. You know, come up with your own statement of that melody. The example on the following page shows a solo that works over the changes of the tune. Let's take a look at that. So the first thing I would do is go through and mark the form. So you know that it's AABA. A is 8 bars, so go through, and after the next 8 bars, write in letter A. Find the bridge. Conveniently, we have on this chart, it's marked swing. So go right there and mark bridge. And then all the way down where it says Latin again, we're going to talk about that in a moment, that's your last A section. Marking the form on this, again, helps internalize all of those things that we've been talking about. So the range of this written out solo isn't necessarily great for the trombone in some spots. Taking some of these up the octave is cool, or modifying them to suit our range on this instrument. So many of these things were written for saxophone players, which is fine. Let's try to emulate what a saxophone player might do on a tune like this. So now I want to talk about style. The next cool thing about this tune is that it's often played as a Latin tune, meaning with a straight eighth feel, but with a jazz articulation on it, or with a swing feel, meaning that the eighth notes are swung. In this case, we have both. So the A sections are straight or Latin feel, and then the bridge is swung. So now, let's grab that play-along track and take a listen, because this is the best way to hear the shift between styles. So take a look at the eighth note runs. The pickup to the bridge should be swung, right? You see those eighth notes all leading right into the bridge section, right? You want to swing them. Effectively, you want to start that style a bar before it actually happens. So when you see swing written or you hear the rhythm section moving into that, start to swing your eighth notes. And the same is true in the other way. The rhythm section on the recording does this really well. So this time, put your listening ears on and listen especially to the drummer. He's going to play a fill into that section, into the bridge section, to set it up. And note that he's swinging his eighth notes, whereas before that they were straight eighths, right? So work on going back and forth between straight eighths and swung eighths. Now on your solo, remember that if you struggle with improvising, the best thing you can possibly do is to play the melody. Go home, play the melody. Always play it in your own way. Play it from the heart. Add embellishments and lines as you see fit. Play it the way that you hear it. So then, when you take elements of the written out solo here, you can write a riff or a little phrase that you like from this solo and use it in your own improvisation. Write it out. Finally, tell a story. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an ending, right? You can't not. So come up with your beginning. And what I mean by that is plan it out. What are you going to play to start your solo? Then have the middle in mind. Where do you want to go from there? You can consider things like range, high, low, middle, velocity of notes, any kind of things like that. What other things could you change? And now, how do you want to end it? Where are you going to take that journey? Where is your story going to end? Don't just peter out. Have a plan for how you're going to end it and see it through all the way to the finish line. Hey, here's another Gable tip. Some of the greatest jazz musicians in the world work out their solos. This is a really like best kept secret here. Yes, it's improvised, and yeah, things can change night to night, every day, you know, different circumstances, the audience. But man, sometimes it's also very cool to work out those parts in advance. For you, my best advice is to work some of it out, even write it out. Write out your beginning. What is that first phrase you're going to play? That will give you the confidence in the heat of the moment, whether it's in an audition or in a room with 100 people or 1,000 people and you're up on stage. That confidence comes from knowing where you're going to be. There's also excitement in not knowing where you're going to be. It's all cool, so find what works for you. So that's the piece, and I do want to remind you that you also should learn to play the written out, we'll call it a jazz etude. And again, making range adjustments is cool to try to make that work for our instrument on the trombone. So you can jump octaves in a few spots and make it sound like music, make it sound like it comes from you. The next part of the audition is everybody's favorite, scales. Scales are so essential, man, not just to jazz, but to the fundamentals of your horn. To become a better musician and improviser, scale practice is a must. And on an audition, these are just free points. Man, there's no reason you shouldn't get a perfect score on your scales. So use these as a warm-up every day. You can combine your efforts too. If you want to work on your range, practice some scales in the upper register or the lower register. Same for intonation, articulation. Hey, remember the style shift on softly between the Latin and the swing? You can try that on some of your scales. Play an eighth note pattern, play them straight, and then play them swung or switch in between. There are so many ways to make scale practice fun. Trust me, all of it is beneficial. Now, another section of your audition is sight reading. I like to say, reading at sight, it'll be all right. The one and only way to get better at sight reading, like most things in music, is just to do it. Add this to your daily routine. Open up a book, pull out a big band chart at school, and sight read it down. Just read it on your own. Scan the page for important things like key signature, patterns, form, or the all-important roadmap, things like a DS or coda, repeats. Working on your reading is another great way to improve your all-around musicianship as well. Now, day of the audition, I got some tips for you. These are important. The first thing you should do before any audition, or playing your horn, or playing a sport for that matter, or taking a test, or really anything, is to breathe. Breathe slowly, breathe deeply, breathe deliberately, and breathe with intention. Take some time to do that. If it feels like a long time to you, it's probably only 5 seconds. Why not take 10 seconds? Next, drink plenty of water. You may hear this all the time, but trust me, it will help keep you hydrated, and that not only helps you play, but it helps your body in all of its various functions. The same is true for sleep. Don't ever overrate sleep. A well-rested, well-hydrated, well-prepared musician is unstoppable. It's an unstoppable force. So breathe, hydrate, sleep, and practice. Don't forget that one. So with that, it's your turn. It's time to practice. I sincerely hope that some of these Gable tips were helpful to you. You've chosen the trombone. It is a noble instrument. I stand on the shoulders of all the greats that came before me, like Tommy Dorsey, J.J. Johnson. There's so many great players. I love music, and I suspect that you do too. So I'm inviting you to share that love. Good luck with your practicing, and I'll tell you what, we can't wait to see you at Westfield State.